well, but when they went in, it was like a 70% tier. So we have
Holy.
like 2 anchors in there.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I've done the PRV.
Hi, good afternoon,
Yeah.
everyone. Welcome to this November 16th, 2023 regularly scheduled school board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving along, head into board comments and committee updates. Anyone have any updates?
The policy meeting met last week, so I think there is maybe 1 or 2 in here. No.
It'll be December 7th. We didn't
Oh.
make it into this.
Thank you. So there'll be some next meeting for a first read.
I do have one small correction from last meeting. Excuse me. The trees that were planted by the Net Zero folks were actually donated by the class of 2023. So thank you very much to you folks. I think they're northern red oaks, I want to say, if I remember correctly. So thank you very much for your donation. Joy for years to come. All right, moving along. Student rep report. Sean, you have anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Awesome. Moving along.
Okay. So I'll start off with soccer because obviously it's been over for a while. However, the results came back for like first team or like all Granite state team. So AJ Mulligan, Morgan Boucher, Emma Kobiak, and Olivia Blackadar all got first team for the girls, and then for second team, Jillian Long and Jackie Prompton got it for the boys team. And then honorable mentions were Matt Napolitano and Mairead Moore. For cross country, Alana Hagan ran regionals. She finished 81st out of 250 runners. This is like all of New England, so that's pretty impressive. Jaron LeBranch, Elise McKenna, and Alana Hagan. Oh, I forget the award that they got, but it was like Granite State All like Southern or something like that. Like, and Alana Hagan is committing to Northeastern, which D1. So that's pretty impressive. So congrats to Alana. Basketball and swimming, hockey, cheer, indoor track. They're all starting up. I know hockey had along with swimming, are having better turnouts. We were expecting. Hockey doesn't sound like a lot, but we have 4 students doing the hockey team, and we're combined with Portsmouth, and usually it's pretty much just Portsmouth and like 1 or 2. So it's good to see that our numbers are increasing with 4. And then the swimming team, as I mentioned last time, is also increasing in numbers. They were only expecting 2. They're getting 4 or 5 now, so enough to do a relay team apparently. I don't know what that is, but, well, I kind of know. Not exactly.
I'm guessing they relay.
I'm guessing they swim and hand something off.
Hope the baton floats.
Model UN had their first conference at PEA. I heard it was great, very interactive with a bunch of other schools. I heard it was very long, but I heard they had a great time. SALT sent 4 representatives to Timberlane, I believe Timberlane, to do a like leadership conference in which they tried out activities and with a bunch of other people from other schools where they had to interact with people from other schools and to try and up participation within schools, especially leadership clubs like SALT, and learn better activities. So I know SALT is starting to do more activities every single meeting to try and boost participation and increase leadership skills. National Honor Society, we have now raked 11 yards throughout the town. It was like a sign-up sheet, and so every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have raked yards. Tomorrow we have, I think, 5 yards that we're raking throughout the town, and then I think like somewhere around 7 for the entire weekend. Or no, definitely more than that actually. So that's good that NHS is getting out there. We're also helping the Lions Club sell Christmas trees. And then Rochester is having they're starting a food pantry, and so we're gonna try and send 2 to 4 members every Monday, I believe it is Monday, to help out and volunteer with the Rochester food pantry. Student council, I don't know if you guys saw the vending machine out there with all the teachers and staff's name on it. Basically, we set up a nice little poster board and made cups for each staff member in the school, in which we made it like, because it's gratitude month, so we wanted to show our gratitude to each of the teachers. And I thought that was really cool and unique. Also, student council is setting up for next year's homecoming, which is in a year, but comes very quickly, and it's a lot to set up. And also Spirit Week for the week before Christmas break is also being set up. Net Zero had a community cleanup a couple days ago. So wanted to give them a shout out along with their trees that they planted in front of the school. And the last thing I have is the Drama and Improv Club had their show, and they're choosing a production now for probably going to be going to be a musical, which is like the first one in a while.
Spoiler already.
Yeah, spoiler. A musical for the drama club, and yeah, that's all I have.
Do you happen to know where the Christmas trees are being
Yeah, I
sold?
was gonna ask that
I
too.
think it's the community like thrift shop down. I think like the one near Opie
On
Shop.
108.
Oh,
that.
out by,
Yeah.
okay, yep.
Yeah, the hardware store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe that's where they're being sold.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. And now the superintendent report. Good luck.
Actually, I wanted to ask a quick question to Sean. I know you did a training with the New Hampshire School Board Association for student school board reps. I don't know, how did that go? Was that valuable to you?
I was able to go for about a half an hour. I
Okay.
had a meeting with a Northeastern representative,
There you
so
go.
I had to leave early. But it was they were throwing a lot of stuff, like very quickly, and then they started just going around. There was only like 4 of us.
Yep.
There was supposed to be a lot more, but apparently nobody wanted to go. And he just kind of went in order, asking each of us like, what are your responsibilities? How did you get in? What do you want to see happen? That's pretty much, I answered, and then I was like,
And
all
then you're
right,
out.
I have to go now, but.
Just for your information, if you're interested, there's a statewide in-person conference for December 2nd. If it's something that you are interested, Saturday, but if it's something you're interested in.
Where is that?
It's at,
Do you want to take some time to write that down?
it's at, I believe it's at Bow High School, but I'll have to confirm that with you, but I just wanted to, it's statewide, so I'm gonna bet there'll be more than 4 people there.
Yeah, I would assume.
There you go.
I might take the other side of that.
Yeah,
So
I'll ask
anyway,
you for more
check it,
information.
yeah, I'll forward it to you when I get a
All
chance.
right, thank you.
All right, so on to my report. First thing I wanted to just mention is the playground is wrapped up assembly today. Tomorrow, the construction fences come down, and then as you all know, we kind of put together an impromptu dedication on Monday. So I appreciate, I know it's a work day, and I know it's hard for people to get away, but we are going to go ahead and do the ribbon cutting. The 5th grade student council is actually going to be the ones that cut the ribbon and so forth. But we wanted to do that, to dedicate it, because we want to get kids playing on it as quickly as possible. But it is done. The fences will be coming down, and one of the things that a lot of people have asked me about is, now we got a new playground. How are we making sure kids understand how to use the equipment and all the rules? Sean and his leadership team are going to be rotating kids through. They're going to be what they're going to do is let the kids use it on Monday after the dedication, and then on Tuesday they'll bring them through and kind of talk about the rules of the various pieces of equipment just to make sure kids do it. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, it is largely done. The only thing that's left to do is there's a lot of raking left with the wood, the wood chips.
What
So
time
for
is it at, God?
10 o'clock on Monday morning. Yes.
Okay.
I know a group that does raking. If you
Oh, it's true. We got
Who's raking?
NHS. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of chips there. So it'll be a while before the rain settles it down and it becomes a little less. It's very cushiony, so nobody can get hurt on this playground. It's like falling on a feather bed at this point. So anyway, so I'm very excited that we're reaching that. We've reached that point. So I wanted to mention that. Second thing I wanted to mention is after much dragging of feet, the Secretary of State officially announced that January 23rd, 2024 is the New Hampshire presidential primary election. And as we have talked about, what that means is we will have a school, because the gym of the high school is used for voting, and they anticipate a relatively high turnout. So obviously we can't have school at that time. So as we have discussed at previous meetings, once they picked it, that I would announce that it's a teacher workshop day. So I will put out a communication tomorrow to the community letting people know that January 23rd will be, school will be closed for the primary. Teachers and all of our educators and tutors will have a work day, but it'll be a workshop day. And just to give you a kind of a prelude of what we're doing, we're going to do a kind of a vision of a graduate launch day. And so we're going to spend, it's basically allowing us to have the entire district staff at the elementary school and spend the day working with the vision of a graduate and kind of looking at it from all of our different angles and lenses. So I think it should be a really exciting thing. So what that means, just so people know, is in January, we already had a workshop day scheduled on January 16th, and that was already scheduled and planned for. That's why I didn't want to move it, because we have things planned that day. So there will be 2 workshop days in January, one on January 16th and a second one on January 23rd. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to just say is actually it's always fun to me when we use our facilities for a new group to come in. And Patty Wands hosted the curriculum instruction directors and assistant superintendents Southeasters group this morning. So I had about, I don't know, 20 or 25 curriculum people and so forth. And they met in the auditorium of the town hall. But what connects it to the school district is when people arrived, Patty Banfield was there setting up, putting out refreshments for everybody, and people were really thrilled that that was there. Then they noticed Jason Carey and Kareem and Travis were there to help set up the technology, and they were there. A few minutes later, Dave Riley comes in and says, hey, is everybody warm enough? Checking in on the temperature and all that kind of stuff. Now, I know that sounds like minor stuff, but once everybody left the room, Patty said, everybody in that room said, is this the way it is all the time in Newmarket? I mean, we have an IT guy, and I don't know how to get a hold of them. They don't show up anywhere. And you had 3 of them in the room for you, and you had multiple people checking in to make sure we had what we needed. And Patty said, no, actually, this is the way it is. When we do stuff, people show up, and they help us out. And I just think everybody who was at that meeting walked away with like, hey, I'd love to come work in Newmarket. It's a pretty nice place. These people care about each other. So I just wanted to say that because it's not just the hard work that our teachers do, but it's also all of the support people. And I just thought, Jason, his team, and Dave, and Patty, they really helped. It's stuff that people don't always notice, but it was definitely noticed by people who do this kind of work on a regular basis. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So thank you, and that's the end of my report.
Oh, that's great. They do deserve a lot of kudos that they don't always necessarily get. First up on our agenda of the items we just did is a presentation of the 24-25 draft budget narrative. We're really just looking at the narrative tonight with Jana. So just a reminder, we had our budget workshops. We actually looked at the financials last meeting. While it's certainly the board's purview to make changes, what we really want to do is just a quick review of the narrative, and then once we approve it, it'll be presented to the budget committee
December 11th.
December 11th, thank you.
So thank you. As you know, most of the numbers in here, as Gary spoke about, we've talked about that the budget remains unchanged from what we proposed to you when we met earlier. What this gives you is some more depth and some more explanation for, in context for the numbers that we have. Most of these things have been discussed when we had our budget workshop, but this is kind of the formalized accounting of it to put out to the public to help people understand how we get to these numbers. A couple notable things about this. We got this to you earlier this week. The final version of this will change because we just got adequacy aid in yesterday, so the revenues play in, and that will change. We want to update that before we go to the budget committee. And then there was one small thing that when I was calculating the default budget, I realized that I had carried forward about $10,000 in error. It didn't impact our budget, but it counted in the increase from the prior year. It was for the capital improvement work we had done, that assessment, and I should have removed that from the calculation. So since I'm going to revise it anyways for the adequacy aid, I'm going to go back and fix those tables to make it more accurate. Because it was just such a small amount, though, it doesn't change the numbers. It's still 4.3%. So basically this, each department head kind of encapsulated their explanations of all the things that we spoke about at the budget workshop. We've compiled that together. There will be one addenda coming to the back of this. You may remember from last year, we have an Appendix B, which will be attached, and it has our default budget calculation and an explanation of how we got to that. I'm in the process of preparing that now. And I imagine we will also have the DSB, the default budget for the board to sign when you meet next on December 7th. So those things will be kind of added to this. And at that time, we hope to present you with the final with the with the binders and all of the backup and support that you've grown accustomed to over the years. So does anyone have any specific questions or concerns or feedback?
I was just wondering how the adequacy aid turned out relative to our estimates.
Well, there are 2 points to remember. When we considered our budget last year, we had an estimate from the state. That estimate wound up being $300,000 lower than we actually got. So we were already starting $300,000 higher. The new estimates came out, and the swept goes down, which by a little bit, and the adequacy aid went up, but the net is about $244,000 to the good.
44.
Yeah, approximately. Don't hold me to it. I don't have my number in front of me.
I know. Well, great.
And just as a couple of quick points about this narrative. Clearly, there are discussions we're going to have in a few minutes regarding retirement incentives and stuff like that. And there may be minor adjustments in the numbers, but bottom line that I think is most important for you to hear is that the 4.3% overall increase is true regardless of whatever adjustments we choose to make tonight as a result of the other discussions we have tonight.
I don't think you officially presented the insurance rates to the board, did you?
No, I didn't. Those came in. So we had asked for a preliminary estimate, and if you recall, last year we had an unpleasant surprise where the estimate came in, the final rates came in 2.9% higher than what we had budgeted. We were able to absorb that elsewhere in our budget, but we were leery of that. So we asked multiple times this year, we would like a conservative best guess estimate as to what we could get. We were advised 10% was a good number. When our rates were finally set, was it last week? I think it was the beginning part of last week. They came in at 3.7. Now, for the life of me, I don't know how that's a good margin of error, but 68% isn't a real good margin of error. However, we've gone back to the drawing board, and what's in here tonight is different than what you got before because we did go back and rework those numbers to take those the reduction into play here.
So that puts us, if I recall, I'm looking at it, it's 4.3%, excuse me.
Right.
Overall increase versus the 4.7. I think it was.
Right.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So it was significant enough that it made a difference. So we felt it was worth. If it was insignificant, we probably would have left it, but it was enough to make a difference. So we wanted to recalc that.
And I think it's important to put that in context too, because we're sort of a standalone district that saw rates coming in at a reasonable level. Most districts are looking at 15, 20, 25% increases. So it's important to appreciate that while we have it, because we can't promise that that's going to be the case every year.
Can I ask you about the dental? I don't remember dental being itemized last year.
What page is that?
It's on 26. It says it's a 4.7% increase. What was it last year? I just don't remember that ever being itemized.
Well, 2 years ago, there was no increase, and last year I believe it was around 3%.
Okay.
But it's grouped in your presentation. It's into that health slash dental. It's
Yeah.
rolled into that amount in each department. It's usually it's a much smaller amount than the health premium, so we just add it together.
And is that based on, the less the subscribers use their insurance?
They're, without getting too far out of my comfort zone, I know they have actuarial calculations that they do, but I also know that part of it is we're part of a group, a school group, and so
okay.
some of their formula takes some of our claim history into consideration, but the larger piece of our calculation, just like with our health insurance, tends to be group driven. So, like I said, I'm kind of out of my depth explaining the exact calculation, but I know that there are multiple vectors that do go into it.
It's interesting because I think part of it, why we were so low, is our utilization. Which interestingly, you had talked about saying, well, we should get the group utilization. It turns out, had we gotten that in this
No,
case,
we
we probably would have been, So,
Base having a young workforce.
I think in general, utilization for both health and dental has kind of rebounded since COVID. A lot of people stopped or deferred some health care during that time, but we are seeing an uptick in utilization.
Can I ask, with the sharp difference between what they estimated and what actually came in, that's nothing more than they tried their best, and it's not necessarily a window into perhaps like an insurance company that's struggling to provide services that we...
No, I don't think that's the case. I have asked multiple years in a row for an earlier timetable on our rates just because of our timetable, and we're not wildly different from most districts in the state. There is another large player in the healthcare school arena that does get rates out in the middle of October. And so I know that there are statutes and RSAs that come into play, but the fact that another organization can get them out quicker tells me that there's something with this group that they do with their rate setting and their board of directors that's different, that's preventing that. But I have asked multiple times, and when this came in that much different, I explained it really created a discrepancy. And, the more concerning piece for me, it's great that it went down, but the more concerning part is, what if it had gone the other way? And so I said, is there any way that we could get an earlier window for our rate setting because of our timeline? And the answer was no.
Do you know what % of New Hampshire uses this one?
I don't know what percent. I think I can bring that back to you the next meeting minutes. They just had their administrative kind of retreat where they speak to the administration benefits, and I do have a PowerPoint from that, and they talk about the number of schools and municipalities that participate. What I don't have is the comparative weight from other players in the market. Like, I could tell you how many participate in this particular group, but not necessarily compare it really to the others without asking for that.
Please don't take your time to do that. I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll be something part of the discussion next year when the teacher's contract is up for...
Yeah.
And just a reminder too that last year we created a benefit stabilization fund that we put $50,000 in as a capital reserve fund, specifically to give us the flexibility in the event that health costs came in higher than expected.
Yeah.
And certainly when we talk about the draft warrant coming up, we're certainly going to recommend putting
Right.
another 50 into that fund just as a insurance policy against a sudden shift.
Right.
Because the dollar figure, when we dropped from 10 to 3.7, it was like, what, $130,000,
Right.
$140,000, something
And,
like that.
and the year
yeah.
before, even with the 2.9, we were over $50,000 that we kind of had to find in the budget somewhere. So, yeah, it's a significant enough variable in our overall budget that it does make a difference.
So just make sure I'm following what this is telling me correctly. If I look at the revenue proposed budget,
Are you in general?
yeah, general fund proposed budget under revenue, it's on page 9 of the packet.
Yep.
You've got the district assessment going up by $106,000, which that's the amount raised through taxation at the local level, correct?
Right, but I also want to point out that these numbers here, if you look down to the net education grant and then
Yep.
state ed tax,
Mhm.
those have not been updated. So when I increase those, they go up by the 244. You actually wind up with a net decrease. Spoiler alert on the next version. So those
Alright,
things.
So a decrease on the district assessment that we raised through local property taxes.
Yeah.
And swept, we think, is going to stay flat.
No, it doesn't. Swept goes down.
Swept
but
goes
but
down.
adequacy aid went up
Okay.
enough so that the net wound up being about 244.
All right.
So yeah, so next week this chart will be changed. Next time you see this, the chart will be changed out with the new adequacy aid.
All right, and when we come to the budget committee, we'll actually lay out the complete picture, divide by the town assessment.
Yep.
and
I'm in the
estimated
process
tax
of
rate.
calculating that right now. I was working on the default today. I have pretty much haven't reviewed it yet with Mr. Allen, but I'm going to go review that. I hope to have both the default budget for you to sign, as well as the estimated the draft warrant with the estimated tax impact for the board when we meet next.
Sounds like it will be a happy story.
What's that?
Cautiously, optimistically, it sounds like it'll
We
be a
should
happy
always
story.
be cautiously optimistic.
Thank you.
Jan, I have a question on staffing. On page 12 for the elementary school, 62,000 for 2 new positions, health aides.
Yes,
I meant to ask you that during the budget workshop.
Yep.
Could you just clarify what?
sure.
I would be happy to, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Those, I don't want to get into a lot of specifics because this involves meeting the needs of an IEP. And basically, we have a student with some medical needs that historically what we've had is a full-time registered nurse that has been with that. So that we're phasing away from a registered nurse and shifting to two LNAs with the idea that they can sort of split their time, and part of their role will also be supporting our school nurse, who will take on some of the medical duties with this particular situation.
Okay.
So it's, in terms of the dollars, I mean, you can speak to that, it's not enough.
Yeah, previously this was a contract, the RN services was a contracted service. So what we're doing is we're kind of shifting to our own internal staffing, which will give us more flexibility with transportation and everything else. We do have, sometimes we have students that actually need support while they're on their transportation, and we've had to pay for that outside of this. So this gives us a little bit more flexibility. With the 2 of them, we can cover both ends of the day. And one thing, just to let you know, those 2 that we increased by, we decreased by a sum total of 2 FTEs because we eliminated the lunch monitors at the at the 3 levels. So it was basically kind of a wash FTE wise.
So just some thinking, having reviewed this, and I appreciate the work on this. Page 1, the bottom of page 1, that gets into the impact on the revenues situation. I would propose like a header in bold that sort of is just like impact of like shifting state revenues, something that makes it clear, like, hey, like, look at this,
Okay.
and something graphic. There's a lot of like swept and this and that in here, and like, and if someone up there is not following like school budgeting, like seeing graphically, oh, like, this is how much was coming in before,
Okay.
and here's how much has been shifted to taxpayers, just might be helpful for them
Okay,
to grasp
that's
it.
great feedback. We can definitely put something like that together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just maybe just aggregate the state and say it's is how much a decrease in the state, regardless of
Yeah.
where it's collected. This is how much of decrease.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, it's the shift, right? It's like all of a sudden this money, and I've been in these dialogues well enough now that I read the paragraph and
Right.
I get it, but
Right.
like,
Yep.
I think my first month on the school board read that, I've been like, wait, tell me what again?
Yeah. Okay. That's great
Um,
feedback.
The page 2, the first full paragraph on page 2, it gets into the ESSER funding.
Mhm.
And this is it's linguistic, like we could have a conversation about the exact language, but when I read a school social worker and school counselor who works with at-risk students needed to be fully funded. But like, I feel like if I was sitting on the budget committee and I was looking to cut money, I'd be like, tell me about needed. What do we mean by needed? Like, and I think if they're working with broader than at-risk students was what I heard. It's not just at-risk students. Like, so they're working with like a variety of populations, serving like still prevalent needs that are outliving the grant, right? Like, so how do we calculate that, like, some way to make that needed feel more meaty,
Yep.
for lack of a better term?
And I would personally, I would stress too, community needs, because I am still frustrated that the town's not stepping up to the plate,
Yep.
whether it's incorrectly targeted or not.
We can definitely.
Making it concrete, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, can be done, sure.
I'm sorry. Just a few more, I apologize. So, I would have a clear, like, when I look at the the student enrollment, and like the declines, and if I like had another page where I was looking at like the budget over the corresponding years, it would tell a very odd story of declining enrollment, increasing budget. I would have an answer to that question, because I cannot imagine it wouldn't, at least, I don't know the budget committee, they know better, but one person who wouldn't ask why with numbers going down is budget going up.
Yeah, I think, because there was that question
Came up
last
last year.
year about the dollar amount we spend per student. And that's actually like an incorrect way to look at how we're funding the school, just because you lose a student doesn't mean you're automatically decreasing the amount of money you need, because you still have fixed costs that you have
Right.
to pay for, just less people you have to spread across.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's seems, again, I'm doing exactly the thing I said we shouldn't do and going off of social media, but that seems to be a prevalent misunderstanding in the community, that increases in enrollment automatically translates to an increase in the budget, which, we know based on the state adequacy aid funding and the basic, largely fixed cost nature of the district, the exact opposite is true. The more kids we get, the more state funding, the less goes to
Well, it's
local
not a one-to-one
taxation.
ratio. It's stepwise. It's like,
Yeah.
you would have to lose a certain amount to be like, okay, now we
Yeah.
gotta reduce staffing.
Yeah.
Or gain a certain amount to be able to increase staffing. It's not just like you increase one, you get a
Right.
tenth of a teacher, right?
Right.
Like that. But I just feel like having a clear narrative to that might be helpful in describing.
Yep,
the-
good point.
And just in case people are listening at home, it's also a district this size. If the numbers decreased enough, and we are not there right now, where like you would need, like there would be one less position. That's not just one less position, it's also less course offerings you can offer, or even possibly like less clubs you can offer. So it comes down to how much the services you want to offer the students, as opposed to the number of.
Yeah, but it also doesn't decrease the amount of science equipment you need to have.
Yeah.
For the building you're paying for needing a certain number of equipment for the gymnasium, just because you have 10 less kids.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
So, it's something people need to realize.
So, one of that when here we talk about, I'm sorry, on page, in the personnel section, page 3, FY25 budget gets to 1.1%, 2.4 FTEs.
Mhm.
Then when I scroll down to analysis of changes for FY25, salaries lists 481K increase, right? Like, there's clarity on like, how are we reducing that, but they're going up. Like, what's driving that?
Right.
Like, and I just found this chart itself somewhat confusing of the new increase, decrease versus total increase versus new versus level. Could you explain what the?
Yeah, this is something we've put in before for a couple years. The point of the chart, and perhaps we can look at that, is to kind of explain. We know that our budget, and again, keep in mind this is going to change a little bit based on that change. But let's say the total increase is $1,013,000,
Yeah.
which is what we show here. We're trying to explain how much of that $1,013,000 would be there just to provide level services if we made no changes to our instruction, no
Okay.
changes to our staffing, nothing, just to provide the same level of service in an inflationary environment. And so that's what this is trying to show. It's trying to say that just to keep level funding, if we didn't make a change, if we didn't do any increases or change anything, that of that 1.13, 892,000 of it would have been there anyways. What we've actually changed.
Sorry, I wonder if this is an order of the
Yeah.
columns.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you put level.
Level in the
let's
middle?
go- No, put second,
Second, yeah.
and then new, and then total at the end.
Okay,
Yeah, it reads weirdly as you
Okay.
try to progress from left to right.
we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if you also like it's like level services, like so you just with that right, and then next to it like
Yeah.
new expenditures. So really, it's just like what we're really saying. The new expenditures out of all of this,
Small.
it's $237,000, which
Right.
on size of this budget is like
Right. And basically, that's the 2 grant-funded positions and Dave Riley's capital improvement plan. That's really the sum total
Right.
of
Right,
what we
and
have.
those 2 grant-funded positions are actually functionally still providing level services.
Yes,
So
right,
like,
right.
It's right to put them in there, but like,
Right.
so you get that out, and you're really looking at it's like tiny.
Right.
Yeah. Yep, we can definitely do that.
Like I want like, and it's probably too late in the game, although we have a few weeks. Like, I wonder if there's a way to graphically depict like the increases that truly are discretionary increases, which is that $237,000. That's literally where we made decisions to increase.
Mhm.
Everything else just sort of like
Well, we
contracts or
we
shit.
sort of do that by page 7, where we talk about salaries, benefits, operations, and debt services.
I
get
think
your
I know
point.
what-
It could be more explicit, but.
Well, I think I know what you mean. I mean, maybe what you're getting at is putting like a stacked bar here
Yeah.
that will show the total increase, and of that, a visual of what's the level and then what's the new, because it will
Yeah.
show a little. We can definitely
It'd
look
be
at.
so minuscule, right? Like so
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
minuscule.
So we can definitely rework this and do some type of graphic that would kind of show that.
To the point of rolling in the 2 previously grant-funded petitions, I wouldn't change what you've written here, but when we actually present to the budget committee, I would definitely suggest either yourself or Todd or whoever the right person is really taking some time to speak to the utilization
need.
bordering on overutilization of the counseling department.
Right.
Like
Right.
just how many services that department is providing to how many children and families in this district.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not personally, and I imagine everyone feels pretty similar, not something I even considered for a second wanting to take out of the budget. If anything, I would think more in terms of expanding it, so.
Okay.
No, it was virtual when they came and presented,
Yeah.
but like I would have had a question right around caseload, right? Like it's the way they're calculating my caseload that's just easy to understand to a layperson. Like
That's a good way to
they're
do it.
at like over capacity for caseload right now. as we're speaking.
So having a spouse who's in a school counseling, there's your caseload, and she happens to get happy alphabet. But then there's your everyday people you just run into in the hall, kid who doesn't want to get out of his car, a teacher who's having a bad day.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do so much. It's just.
I know it's kind of one thing, but I think too, like there were major issues because of the people in the student services office in years prior were so overwhelmed because of what the expectations on them that there were mistakes that were made for no fault of their own, where like it was impacting students' rankings and GPA, which is serious. It affects everyone. So, and that was a number of years ago, but I just want to emphasize that, yeah.
Yeah, but we can definitely to your point, when we present this, absolutely talk about the value of those positions and highlight, as much as we can, the data that's gonna explain why they're needed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, it may be even more important for the deliberative session than the budget committee, just to, I mean, this is not a flight of fancy. This is something that is providing a direly needed service on a
Right.
day in, day out basis.
Thank you so much for everything you've done the past couple months with this. This is a lot of work for you and your office along with everything else, so.
I can't take all the credit. There's a lot of hands on this, and a lot of hard work's gone into it. Really, a lot of discussion, a lot of difficult discussions. So, yeah, there's a good team that's behind this. So,
100% agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, going into discussion items, first up is correspondence. Has anyone received any correspondence? Just do a quick school board goal update. Obviously, our goals are understanding the demographics and the community and the school, increasing or improving our communication with the community writ large, including obviously the school and parents and just regular town folks. I'd say regular, but and then lastly is the vision of a graduate, which is the amazing work. Staff, we've been able to pretty much check off the list, but it does tie into some of our other work for demographics and communication. Todd and I were briefly chatting for the meeting about kind of demographics, and we're going to work with the town on that. They haven't been able to start it yet, so he's actually had a great idea about maybe coming up with a survey we could send out to just kind of understand from the community what they're interested in, where they would like to see improvements.
Kind of tie it into the vision of a graduate stuff, and just try to gauge where people would like to see us invest our time and energy in improvements. Because on the one hand, you want to make sure your educators are making the best educational decisions as we go, but by the same token, there are lots of different ways to restructure and rethink things, and having a good understanding what the community wants. I think the vision of a graduate is a good starting point, and we could probably generate a pretty good survey that might cause people to give us that feedback. It's not really demographic information, but it certainly would be informative to trying to establish, like, as we start taking our first steps into how to implement the vision of a graduate, how do we, what do people want, and what would their interest be? Things like, we often talk about programmatic changes at the high school level, and like multiple pathways and other programs that we would like to see offered within our schools that are not there now, and that kind of thing.
Any thoughts on that?
No, if the administrative team would find it helpful, I think definitely, yeah.
All right, next up, we have a request from Todd to waive the policy DJE, which is basically our policy about funding or solicitation of
Bids.
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 Thank
Bidding
you.
policy.
That's
Yep.
it. Those big words that stick me all the time. Solicitation of bids and over $10,000, basically due to an oversight on the architectural plans of the playground. The fences were never included in the estimate, so therefore we don't have any fences to go around and kind of warden off, corral off the younger kids in the kindergarten area, try to keep them away from areas we don't want them to be in. So in order to get the bids and get this done quickly, Todd's requested that we waive that policy, allow him to review, I think, 3 bids you were looking for.
Right, we've already solicited bids. We have prices. We just, if we need to go through an RFP process, obviously that takes a lot longer. And frankly, the work to tell us what kind of a fence was done by the architect, it just didn't show up in the bid that we awarded to construct the playground. So basically, anything above $10,000 by policy, we're supposed to put out to bid, and then use that process. What I'm requesting is to not have to put it out to bid, but to get, as we've already done, 3 competitive quotes and allow us to pick the best. Because if we can do that, we can move pretty quickly on the fence, whereas if we can't, it'll probably be spring before we can install a fence.
Because of ground freezing, et cetera.
What's the high and low on the quotes you have right now?
We're looking at somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000, and I would point out grant funding is where it's going to be paid for. So we have grant ESSER money that we can use to do that.
So, I mean, I'll vote for this, but I'm wondering, at what point in this process should we have noticed that? And what are we learning to prevent it from happening in the future?
Jana, would you like to take that one?
Read the small, tiny little.
Well,
print there.
so we've reached out because all RFPs and all contracts that I sign that are significant like this, we have an attorney review them. So both of those items were reviewed by the attorney. The problem happened due to an error not with the RFP and not with the document. It had to do with the architect's drawing, where he had initially said that the fencing was going to be provided by the company that installed the playground. We had two different companies, one that did site work and one that did the playground. As after they started talking, the playground installer said, we don't do the fences. So he changed the language in the RFP document to remove, to add that back into the site work piece. But on the drawing, he never took the words off, provided by others, off the drawing. So we have reached out to our council again, and we don't want to hold up putting the fence in and having people have access to the playground, but we definitely feel that we have some rationale for pursuing some compensation from other parties because it was an error of omission, basically.
So,
And sorry, there will be temporary snow fencing up to protect kids, so it's not going to stop
Yes,
using
so
it.
Yeah.
it will still be, it's,
Right.
the fence, this is the fence that would go around the preschool playground. It is not legally required, it's just a good idea, it's a safety thing. And so we have discussed, there actually already is a snow fence up there that prevents kids from going towards the bus loop. We've already discussed with staff how supervision is going to need to be a little different until the fence is up, so we can make that work, and staff are fully aware of that. But yeah, we will be able to open the playground just as I described earlier. We just need a fence around the
Right.
preschool part of the playground.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we got that.
yeah, not holding anyone accountable or anything like that. What I'm more saying is, how can we change systems? Because lawyers look at stuff, right? But they're looking at for
Yeah.
legal speed. They're not looking at for
Well, I can tell
the
you that
specification.
even had I known that there had been a discussion and that it had been moved, this was all, we paid the architect, the landscape architect, to prepare these documents. We paid him to give them to us to put out for RFP, and the mistakes were between his own documents. So I didn't pick up on it because it was his work, it was his drawing. I looked at the specs and everything, but he revised one half of the documents, but he didn't revise the other. And that's where the person that bid on it didn't bid on the fence, because one document said it didn't require it, the other one said that it did. And so basically both the contractor and the landscape architect do have some onus to rectify this, because there was also language in there that said if there's a discrepancy, the greater quantity will prevail. So in this case, no fence versus a fence, the greater quantity is a fence. So I do think that's a separate discussion. We'll talk about what we're going to do, but at the end of the day, we have to get a fence up for the kids. So we definitely will pursue what we can. But it wasn't, I would have to say, this wasn't a matter of not having enough eyes on it. It wasn't a matter of, it wasn't a matter of lack of due diligence on anybody's part or even the attorney's part. It's just, it was a very complex document. And if you go back and look at the document, it's probably 50 pages, the RFP, and then the drawing that accompanies it has one line of text in the middle of a big architectural drawing that was the issue.
Yeah.
So,
So
But, yeah.
in terms of correcting for future, I would tell you I will, while I'm here, we will not work with this architect again. Okay, I just want to
That's
say
a
that.
way.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just feels like even I get this complex documents. We had like, and again, I'm not trying to be like, what did someone do wrong? But more like, is there something we can build a system around to be like, if there's double documents that we're cross-checking? I don't want to get into the
It
ages
was
of
3 words on an architectural drawing that was 11 by 14. I mean, I don't know, you would have to,
I get your point, and I think for
Yeah.
a lot of cases, you do want to look for a way to remediate issues, but I think in this particular case, probably one of those things that just kind of fluke that you know.
I just look at every opportunity
I-
like this
I-
as a chance to learn, to set up a
Yeah.
system to prevent it.
But historically, we haven't had issues like this,
Yeah.
so it's.
But point well taken. Believe me, this is
Yeah.
not the outcome we wanted.
Yeah, no, I'm in no way saying anyone.
Yeah.
All right, moving along, if that's okay with everyone. Next up, we have,
Can I have a question?
oh, yeah, please.
On the school board, did we discuss the policy here? You started to,
Oh,
I just have a question on
Sure.
the policy.
Sure.
DJE.
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like the first 2 paragraphs, it's confusing to me. We're talking about a contract for 5,000 or more, right? And then the second one talks about in excess of $10,000. I feel like they are the same, basically, but you're treating it differently. Do you,
Trying to find.
I'm confused by it.
It's on, page-
Oh, we got it. It's on the backside.
Yeah, it's on page, in the,
Looks
Okay,
like
so-
39 or 40.
yeah, it's like, so what is the difference between the first paragraph versus the second? It's still over $5,000, so they both should be treated the same, correct?
Well, not exactly. Getting a quote is different than putting out for a bid. So like, if it's basically saying that if anything below 5,000,
So that's a quote versus a purchase.
right, so we could,
Okay.
like, if something's between 5,000 and 10,000 or $9,999, it's expected that minimally we will get at least 2 quotes to make sure we're getting a good price.
Okay, that's,
10,000
I think
is
I
where-
answered my own question, yeah.
10,000 is where the bidding procedure kicks in.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else? Moving along, we have memorandum of agreements to discuss regarding the Newmarket Sports Staff Association. We'll probably actually want to go into non-public to discuss those MOA proposals. And then there's a retirement incentive. We have some people who are interested in taking our retirement offer, and obviously discussing individuals wouldn't be proper in public, so we should go non-public for that. As well as there's a settlement agreement we'd like to discuss with the board in non-public. So with all that said,
Did we go over school board goals?
we did.
Okay.
Sorry, we talked about the survey?
Oh, okay.
I'm quick.
I'm just like,
Is there anything you wanted to read?
well, just, I think that on the Vision of a Graduate, the comprehensive policy review in light of newly adopted Vision of a Graduate, I think as a policy committee, I know we've been looking at the ones that like we legally required or we're missing, like it feels like an activity the policy committee want to engage in.
I think it's a great idea.
All right, so I seek a motion to go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91(3) to AE and K to discuss MOAs, retirement incentives, and settlement.
Can I ask real quick, is Jana gonna stay here until we vote on the proposed budget?
She probably would. So I get your point.
Well, I would like to have Jenna in the non-public when
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking about the incentives anyway, because she's,
I tried.
He's stuck anyways. At least you tried. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Same as last time. All right. Roll call vote. Gary Swanson. Aye. Amy Tilton.
Aye.
Andrew Hammaker.
Aye.
Lazaro.
Aye.
And Dan Smith.
Aye.
With that, we are in non-public session at 6:09 p.m. and we will be returning to public session. So if you don't mind sticking around, channel 8. What is it?
13.
Channel 8. No, change.
Too late
Yeah,
now?
it's changed.
What?
Yeah.
Fine. 7:02, we are returning back to public session. Moving along, to public comment. Open the floor for public comment at 7:02. Seeing no one, close the floor for public comment at 7:02. Right, action items. Before we go to action items, or as an action item rather, I'd ask the board if we can include forgot the word, settlement agreement as an action item.
Agreed.
Agree.
We'll add that. Number 9. All right. First item for action is seek a motion to approve the November 2nd minutes.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Motion by Amy, second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Seek a motion to approve the, so for the budget, it's not the completely perfect final budget, but we know it's gonna go down a little bit. So if the board's okay with it, approving it now, we can do this. If not, we can do it next meeting.
I think we need to approve it now to get ready for the budget.
Technically, we could do it the next meeting, the budget committee, the following week, but I'm sure James
You're
is
saying
a
because
lot
we
better.
had comments and edits and stuff.
There's some edits, but the finances are gonna change a tiny bit because
Right.
of the SWEP and the other
But
edits.
just to acknowledge that the 4.3% increase is real. It's probably going to change a fraction based on adjustments. So really what we're looking for is that you're okay with the budget at that point, knowing full well that, yes, we have some editing of the narrative to do, which is separate from the actual numbers. Okay?
It's to improve the budget.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
not so much the narrative, just the,
Yeah, I'd seek a motion to approve the 2024, 2025 proposed budget. So moved. By Dan Smith
I'll second. Oh, I'm sorry. And Amy, you can have it.
and by Amy Tilton. Any more discussion? Thank you so much for all your work on the budget. What it's like to do that every year. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes. Seek a motion to approve the retirement incentive for the individuals discussed in non-public session who are eligible.
so moved.
Second.
And this is for the people that are eligible,
For
correct?
people that are eligible, yep. Amy Tilton, Dan Smith. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I was trying not to lose it, like I did last time.
Good, make a motion.
That's all right, I can't officially do that.
All right. I move the board approves the November 16th manifest totaling $871,360.71.
So moved.
I actually moved it.
Oh, you second.
Thank you. Motion by me, second by Bill. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'd seek a motion to approve the sick bank memorandum of agreement between the Newmarket School Association School District and the Newmarket Support Staff Association.
So moved.
Second,
Amy, all in favor?
Is this for both?
It's just for the
just
sick
second.
bank. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Seek a motion to approve the bus monitoring MOA with the Newmarket Support Staff Association.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Andrew, second by Amy. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Seek a motion to approve waiving the policy DJE bid requirements for fencing around the preschool. Let's talk about it.
so moved.
Preschool playgrounds. Motion by Amy, second by Dan. Any discussion? a motion to authorize Superintendent Allen and Gary Swanson enter into a settled agreement with Jeffrey T. Clay on behalf of the Newmarket School District. Todd Allen and Gary Swanson.
I'll
Second.
Amy, you give it.
Motion by Dan Smith, second by Amy Tilton. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Does anyone want to, actually, I'd seek a motion to approve these, approve the settlement agreement, excuse me, once signed into the meeting minutes for the November 16th meeting.
Do we have a motion for that, or just?
Up to you.
All right, so moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? In favor, please say aye.
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 And with that, I think we are done. So I'd seek a motion to adjourn at 7:08 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by Phil to adjourn, second. Second by Dan Smith. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.